Welcome to Godcast with Wanda. Today we're going to be talking about Matthew 24 and what Jesus has to say about the end times. So we're going to start off in Matthew 23, the very last verse of that Matthew 23. This is Passover weekend that Jesus is there because he is the Passover lamb and he's going to be crucified the next day. So as he's leaving Jerusalem, he's given the Jews every chance in the world to believe that he is the Messiah, and they've rejected him. So Matthew 23:39, it says, "For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And that's not going to happen until the end of the tribulation. Now, if we continue on Matthew 24, verse 1, it says, "Then Jesus came out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, Did you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down." Now, let me tell you about this temple. This temple that Jesus is talking about and that the disciples is talking about is Herod's temple. Herod started building this temple in 20 BC, and he finished it about 25 AD. So he worked on it for about 47 years. It took 47 years to finish and rebuild this temple. It's one of the most magnificent buildings around. Beautiful. So they're looking at the east gate, or the east wall, as they're leaving, and the disciples are saying, "This is the most beautiful building we've ever seen." And Jesus looks at it, and this is why he says every stone will be knocked down. But he's not talking about the stones of the temple. He's talking about the cornerstone. Now later on, 70 AD, the temple was destroyed. Every stone was knocked down by the Roman emperor. But that was done by God also, because the Jews were still going to the temple to worship. When Jesus Christ died and that curtain tore from the top to the bottom, there was no more sacrifice needed. Jesus Christ was the only sacrifice needed for mankind to become a believer. Up until then, they had to do Day of Atonement. They had to go to the temple once a year and take a sheep or a lamb or a goat, 1 year old, and sacrifice that. And they would lay their hands on the head of that lamb or that sheep or that goat, and the priest would slit the throat, and they would shed the blood of this sacrificial animal, and that would take care of their sins for the past year. So they had to do this every year to cleanse themselves of their sin. Well, now Jesus Christ is the one and only, and will be the last sacrifice for all mankind. So let's continue on verse 3. "Now as they sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us these things. When will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" So they've just asked him 3 questions. When? What will be the sign? And what are the signs of the end of the age? Now, the Mount of Olives, let me explain this to you because it's very important. Jerusalem, the height of Jerusalem is 2,300 feet. Now, you leave the eastern wall of Jerusalem. It's a beautiful wall, and right in the middle is the East Gate that has been cemented in by the Ottoman Empire because they know Jesus is supposed to return through the East Gate, and they think they're going to stop him. And then right in front of the gate, they've got a cemetery because Jews will not defile themselves by walking, near the dead or touch the dead or over cemeteries. So the Ottoman Empire, Turks, or the Muslims, thought that they were going to stop Jesus Christ coming back into, or the second coming, during the second coming, by cementing in a gate and putting a cemetery there. Not happening. But anyway, they're sitting on the Mount of Olives, which is 2,400 feet. So it's 100 feet taller than Jerusalem. So they're looking down on Jerusalem. And in between there, it's about a half a mile. In between there is the Kidron Valley. It goes way down and it comes back up. Okay? And in the Kidron Valley at that time was Passover. Everyone comes to Jerusalem to the festival of Passover, and then to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which happens right after Passover. So you've got families all in the Kidron Valley with fires going at night and tents or whatever they're laying on, or, just blankets that they're laying on, their capes, their families around. And then Jesus is looking back over this, and he's telling them these things. And this is when they ask him what's going to happen. Tell us what's going to happen at the end, signs of your second coming. So this is where this is at, and this is the view they have. He's sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane in the Mount of Olives, surrounded by olive trees, where he's going to go pray. And then they ask him as they're looking out over Jerusalem. It's a very beautiful sight. And Jesus said and answered them, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and many will deceive. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Verse 7, "For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places," meaning worldwide. "These are the beginning of sorrows." Now, we're seeing these things happening in history today. We're seeing pestilence, famines all over the world, food shortages. They're killing chickens because we've had the bird flu. They're killing cows now because they put off too much methane gas. They're killing our food supply. We're going to see more and more of this unless it stops. This is the one ruled by the one world order, one world economic forum. This is talked about in Revelation 13. Wars and rumors of wars. We're hearing that right now. People will come to deceive you. We have so many cults right now. We have so many people who are in the business of preaching for the money, for the benefits, that are not believers of Christ. We have so many things right now that are distracting and that are taking you away from the Word of God. You have to be very careful who you follow and what you follow. Make sure it's biblical. Kingdom against kingdom, earthquakes. We're seeing earthquakes, and we're seeing unusual weather patterns. Let me tell you, a lot of these weather patterns are being man manipulated. And if you don't believe me, look up HAARP. It is a weather manipulation program that the government uses. So here we have man trying to play God. And what happens when man tries to be God? It doesn't end well. All right, so now listen to this next verse. Now, these are birth pains that Jesus is telling you is going to happen before I come. So we're seeing things like this happen now. And I expect the rapture to happen any day now. I really, truly do. Because nothing else has to happen in biblical history for the rapture to happen. Verse 9, "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you." Tribulation starts when the Antichrist signs the 7-year peace agreement. "And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. And many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound." Wow, are we seeing that around? Yes, we are. "Love of many will grow cold, but he who endures to the end will be saved." Now, you can live through the tribulation. It's going to be hard, but you will be able to live through the tribulation. Even as a Christian, it's going to be very hard, because what's going to happen is you're going to have the mark of the beast. See, it says either on your forehead or your hand. Without the mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell or trade or do anything, which means you can't buy food, you can't buy gas, you can't buy anything. You'll have to be in hiding. Someone will have to buy it for you. Someone who has the mark will probably have to buy it for you. But then if they have the mark, are they going to turn you in, report you? They might have to in order to live. We don't know. A lot of things uncertain there. But I do know that if you take the mark of the beast, you will never, ever make it into heaven. The Bible plainly states that. Though only those without the mark of the beast will be able to enter heaven that are believers. So if the rapture happens and you missed it, do not take that mark. Okay, and then it starts in the Great Tribulation. Verse 14 here, it says, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. This means that everyone in the whole world will have an opportunity to know the name of Jesus Christ. We send missionaries out. All churches I know send missionaries out. Jesus right now is coming to people in dreams and visions in other countries, third world countries. Verse 15 starts talking about the Great Tribulation. Now this is the midway point of the tribulation, the midway point. 3.5 years, 1,260 days, 42 months. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, and that is who? The Antichrist, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place. Whoever reads, let him understand. Now, that's how we know there's going to be a temple built. There has to be a third temple in order for him, the Antichrist, to stand in the holy place. Second coming of Jesus Christ is when the end will happen. All of that will stop. All right, verse 16. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the rooftop not go down to take anything out of his house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been seen since the beginning of the world, until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh will be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So let me explain to you what this means. You will have an opportunity, and we're talking about the Jews here. The Jews will have an opportunity to flee the area, and the Antichrist is going to be stationed in Jerusalem. It's going to be his headquarters. So if you're in Jerusalem, Jesus is telling you flee as fast as you can, if you can flee. And Petra is going to be the city where God has set up for the Jews to go, Petra. Petra is a city in the rocks in Jordan. It's one of those well-hidden cities. It's got shelter. It's got aqueducts so that they can have water. It has places where they can store food. And if God has provided a place for them to live, he will feed them. So he has provided a place for them. But listen to what Satan's going to do. He's going to know they're running. Now, this tells us this in Revelation 12:6. It starts there. And the woman fled. Now, woman is Israel. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her for 1,260 days. That's for 3.5 years. Revelation 12:14-17 says, and to the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. Now, this is Israel fleeing from the Antichrist, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, times and half a times, 3.5 years. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away in the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So what's happened here? When the Antichrist declares himself to be God, that you're going to worship me, you're going to get the mark, you're going to bow down, and those that refuse will have a chance to flee to Petra. The Antichrist is going to try to chase them. It's going to make it flood. Going to drown them all. Well, God opens up the earth and he takes the water away. So those that flee will make it to Petra. And the Antichrist, he said he can't get them. So he turns around and heads back to Jerusalem to fight the rest of the Jews that didn't escape. And then 23, it says, then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. The Antichrist will be so slick that even people who believe Jesus Christ and have dedicated their lives to Jesus Christ will turn to him. Have you ever gone to buy a car? And you see this car, and you're not real happy with it, but you need a car. You get a salesman out there, and he has got a slick tongue. And he tells you how good this thing drives and how much gas mileage it gets, and it kicks the wheels, and he says, well, here, take it for a drive. Take it for a drive. And I'll tell you what, I'll knock $50 off of it. And you think, wow, that's a good deal. You're going to buy that car. Well, that's how the Antichrist is going to be. He's going to be slick. He's going to be handsome. People are going to follow him. They're going to want to be part of his little cult. He's going to be slick, and even the elect, even the believer will be deceived. In verse 25, I have told you beforehand. So here we have Matthew 24, that Jesus is telling them beforehand what is going to happen. We'll cover the rest of this next week because I don't have time right now. But this is a little preview of the tribulation, that there's going to be Antichrist saying they're Christ. We've seen many cult leaders. We've seen many cults. We even have them today. There are many people that have huge followings on YouTube that I would not listen to a word they've got to say, so be very careful. There's going to be rumors of wars. We're seeing that happening right now. It's going to be families going to betray family. Pestilence. Diseases, floods, earthquakes. We're seeing those now, and it's not even the tribulation. It's going to get worse. So my message to you today is, don't wait. Don't wait. You don't know if today the rapture happens and tomorrow the tribulation begins, because you see the mess the world is in today. It's not in a good place. And one man cannot save it. Not one man on earth, but one man in heaven can, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the only way that you're going to get saved. Give your life to Jesus. Just get on your knees and tell him that you want to be part of what everyone else has got. And he'll give it to you. So my message to you today is share the gospel. Share it with someone who needs it. Share the gospel.